Today on Cloud Security Lab a Week, we're going to break some stuff. Last week, we built out our organization. We added a bunch of organizational units and we created a new account. Actually, we created 2 new accounts, I think. What we're going to do this week is we're going to play a little bit more with service control policies and how those interact with organizational units. Then we're going to learn how to do a root account recovery, and I'll go over why we're going to need to do that. Then we're going to actually change the name of one of these accounts, and this is all going to make sense as I grab my magic whiteboard and we just walk through it. So today there's not a lot of foundational security principles to cover. This is a lot more on the mechanics of accomplishing a couple of specific goals within AWS. So let's go to the diagram. And if you recall, this is how we set things up last week. Now, I want to add a little bit on here that we didn't actually go over, but you would see if you were logged into organizations. If you remember, we have our root, which is the root of the entire organization. It's just a construct. There's not like an account there. It's not an organizational unit. It's just like the anchor for everything else. And underneath that, we have our management account, at least the way we have our things set up, and then all of these other accounts. Now, I'm going to switch colors here, and let's find one that is going to work well for this today. We'll do just a random green. Let's go with like a purple, so it'll stand out a little bit better. So this is going to be our indicator for service control policies. So that color is SCPs. And this is going to make a whole lot of sense as I start to write this out. If you recall, everything in here has one SCP, which is allow all. And that's because we are taking the deny list or approach where we have a base of allow all. And then when we want to turn things off, we just deny those individual things one at a time, those individual API calls. And if you recall, one of the ones that we did was deny any use of the root account. And this is the one we need to address. We need to address this for a particular reason. I mentioned this briefly last week, and I think if you're on this one, you've been following things in order. But last week, I mentioned that we're going to add a log archive account, and we are going to change our security archive account. And actually, let me rephrase that. We're going to change the name of our security audit account to log archive. Then we're going to create a brand new security audit account again. Why did we do this? Partially to give us a chance to do this as an exercise, and partially because I was talking to some friends and they prefer to call it log archive over security audit. They were right. I was wrong. And I thought it'd be a good chance to fix things. Now, here's the thing. To make this change, you can change the names and you can change the emails associated with any account in your AWS environment. But to make that change, you need to be logged in as root. So this is showing an example of one of the few times where we need to go ahead and actually log in using our root account to make a change. It's a very important technique that you do need to know for the few times that you're going to need it throughout your security operations career. Now, the other piece of this is, if you recall, when we created these accounts here, we didn't actually do anything to set a password on the root account. Instead, what we did is we just locked them down. And so what we have to do is something called a root account recovery. And all this means is that you say, I forgot my password, and that you have access to the email account that root account was set for, especially because we don't have multi-factor authentication set up for it. Now, this would be horribly insecure because you're like, anybody can get into my email, can reset my root account. Yeah, if you don't take precautions. But we did, because what we did is we set up a service control policy and we put it here, and it was our deny root policy. And so this wouldn't work on the management account because service control policies don't work on the management account, but it would work on every single other account in our organization because we put it on root. So there's no way for me to log in or use, I'm sorry, you could actually do the password recovery and log in, but you couldn't do anything with that root account. And later we're going to learn that that's going to set off other alarms that we're going to be turning on actually within the next couple of weeks. So we have to have a process to do this. Now, we can't use any of these root accounts right now because we have gone ahead and we have that deny root service control policy. Even if we could log in, we couldn't use it. So this is the process we need to take, and this is going to set us up for the future. What we're going to do is we're going to take that deny root service control policy off of root. That's not going to be there anymore. We still have that policy. We're not deleting it. We're just removing that association. Then we will apply it to almost all of our accounts. So we're going to put it on the security OU, our infrastructure OU, our workload OU. Those are the three workhorses of our environment. We're going to make sure that we're not able to log into the root account on any of those ever. So we're going to apply it one at a time to each of those. We are not going to apply it to the exceptions OU. That's the one that we're going to keep for handling these kinds of situations. Then we're going to apply it to sandbox. Let's do our check mark here. We're going to apply it to onboarding. We're going to apply it to our nursery. We're going to apply it to our suspended. For now, we will apply it to incident response, but down the road, there might be the possibility we'll take it off. Okay, well, that's great. I have now an account that I can use that I can move an organizational unit I can use, but there's no accounts associated with it if I needed to recover root. Well, that's all right. What we'll do is our process, let me change to red to make this a little clearer, so step one is we're going to move the SCPs around. And it's just going to be a bunch of clicking through the console. It's pretty easy. Step two is we're going to take that security audit account and we're going to move it into our exceptions OU. Once I do that, that account is exposed if somebody had access to that root account. So pretty quickly, we're going to go through the root account recovery process. Then we're going to log into that account with root. Then we're going to make our changes. And once we're all done with that, we're going to move it back. Move back. And we're going to send that back around into that security OU. Okay, this seems like a really complicated process. It is very straightforward. We're going to make those service control policy changes. We're going to move the account over. We'll recover the root. Takes us a few minutes to do that, a couple of minutes to make some changes. Then we're going to move it back. And at the end result of all of it, that exceptions OU will be empty. And if you think about it, only somebody with access to the management account, or we're going to learn about delegating the ability to manage an organization with those really high-level privileges can move these accounts around in the OU. So this is a pretty solid way of doing this. We can even set later, as we add our security alerting capabilities on there, the ability to get alerts if somebody did these changes. Okay, so that's the basics of it. Again, why are we doing this? We want to change the name of an account. We currently have our logs going into the security audit account. We want that account to be called Log Archive to make it cleaner and easier for people to understand that that's where all the logs are going. We are also going to want a security audit account for things that we're going to do later. We might actually skip that step in this lab depending on how we do on time when I actually do live. Yep, folks, I do all this stuff live sometimes. And so to make that change, we have to log in as root. So we're going to readjust our service control policies because we were going to have to do that anyway. Then we're going to move the account over to the exceptions, log in or get the root account recovery, log in, make those changes, move it back, and we're going to be all set. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. And it's going to make a lot of sense as we actually walk through the process. As a reminder, we are now logging into AWS IAM Identity Center, not the straight up console. So I'm logged in here. And I need to go ahead and go to my management account. In my case, that is called S.L.A.W, Administrator Access. pops me in. Now, one thing you'll notice here is your other accounts don't appear, like that IAM account we created last week. That's because we didn't assign ourselves permissions to it yet. That's not an automatic process, and we'll do that in a future lab. Okay, so I'm in my management account with administrative access, and let's go to organizations. Within organizations, remember, we have our service control policy applied to root. So right now it's blocking access for us to use the root account on any of these other accounts. Let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to go to policies, service control policies, and our protect root and org policy. As a reminder, this denies leaving the organization and it denies any use of the root account. Let's go to targets and you can see that it applies to the root. First thing we want to do is let's apply it individually to all of those other organizational units, except exceptions. We're not going to click that box. So we are going to click on all of these other boxes. Remember, not the management account. Won't work on management account because service control policies don't do that. And we'll click attach policy. It's actually cycling through and making API calls for every one of those things in the background. That's how that portal works. Now let's go back to the targets, and you can see that everything except exceptions is protected. Although it is protected because of root, which blocks use of the root account everywhere, let's go ahead and detach it from the root of the organization. And now, just like our diagram, if I pull that up, we have that policy is applied to all of these organizational units except root. That's the one it's not applied to. Okay, now there's two other things I need to do. The first is I need to move my account that I want to recover into exceptions or nothing's going to work. I will actually be able to recover the root account and log in as root, but root's blocked from any API calls. It's not going to be able to see anything or do anything. The way to do this is we go to security, where that account currently is. And remember, it's our security audit account. 2 steps. Let me zoom in a little bit. First step is I'm going to need that email because that is the email I have to use to log in as the root account. Copying that onto my clipboard. Then I'm going to check that box and we're going to scroll back up and under actions, move. And I'm going to move it to exceptions. What this is doing is it is moving that security audit account out of the security organizational unit where the root account is locked down. It's moving it into exceptions where I do not have that service control policy and I can now use the root account. And let's make sure it worked. Click the down arrow. Security audit is now in that exceptions. And this is what we have that exceptions for. There's no service control policies on it. We use it on a temporary basis when we need to get something fixed or repaired. And that's what we're set up for here. All right. I'm done with all of the moves I make here. And again, I have that email in my clipboard because I'm going to need that to recover the root account. Let's go ahead and sign out. But I also, I'm going to close this window, I also need to sign out of the AWS Identity Center because you can't be logged into 2 AWS accounts at the same time. And I'm signed out there. Now, let's go to the console and do the root account recovery. And there's a specific process I recommend. First thing we do is we actually paste in that root account email. And then we're going to go and click on Forget Password. That's going to give me an email that I can go ahead and log in with. Oh, first I have to do this very ugly. Let's see. I don't know. Hopefully that's not a space in there. We'll see if it works. I hate the ones Amazon uses. Nope. I only get these about 30% of the time. And that time it works. So it sent the email to my account. That's going to have a link in it. I'm going to click in. This is really sensitive. Like anybody who can do this can get logged into your root account, which is why that we keep these things locked down with that service control policy. That is better than having multi-factor authentication on that root account because it's going to block all of those actions. MFA, however, would prevent somebody from logging in. Okay. Now, I have to go ahead and click that link, and I'm going to pause the video as I go through that process, and I'm going to explain a part of it right in the middle. Here's a trick I use. I don't want to have this root password, not for any length of time. So I have gone out off camera and I set up a password using 1Password, which is my password tool. It's a totally random, very long, very strong password. I copied it on my clipboard, but I did not save it. I didn't save it into 1Password. So it's only during this session that I'll be able to use that. So it's a very small time period. There won't be any record. I'm basically creating a password, and I'm going to throw it away when I'm finished so nobody can actually use that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pull that off my clipboard and enter it in. I do pause the screen while I do that. I set that new password, then I logged in. Now I'm logged into my security audit account, and I need to go in and make the changes. We are going to change the name, and we're going to change the root account email so that they are both more descriptive and they say log archive. When I go into my account settings, this is where I go ahead and fix all of that. So let's see, not alternate accounts, not down here, not all of the regions. It's actually all the way up at the top. So let's scroll back up, go to account settings and hit edit. This is where I can change it all. The first change I'm going to make is I'm going to change the name of this account to log archive. This is what's going to change when it shows up in my organization and everywhere else. Save. Now, it still uses the email for S.L.A.W audit, and I don't want to use it for that anymore. I want it to match the name of the account. This is really important for enterprise scale management. Let's go change it. And by the way, you may encounter this if you have problems. For example, you lose access to email or an email was compromised. That's why this is a technique you actually need to know. It's not just me covering up a mistake. Trust me, I'm not above covering up a mistake. All right, so I'm going to go with rmogul plus log archive. One important point to understand about this is that security rmogul plus S.L.A.W audit email will not be usable for a while. These are unique within AWS, and we're going to go ahead and actually have to use a different name when we recreate that log archive account. Or sorry, when we recreate that security audit account. And I'm not going to change the password. I'm just going to say change. Oops, I guess I do need my password. It's still on my clipboard. And save changes. It's going to send me a verification code, and it sent it to that email address. Just like when you create a new account, Amazon doesn't want to let you establish an email address without knowing you have control of it. So I'm going to pause again, go into my email, and pull that verification code. I went over to my email, pulled the email out. This is what it's going to look like. And let's take that verification code, paste it in. And it's all set. So I'm done. So this is pretty cool because the account name is now called Log Archive. The email has been changed to rmogul plus whatever I set that for, Log Archive or S.L.A.W Log Archive. I can't remember what I set it at. Actually, let me go ahead and look at that. It all goes to the same email address. I should have done S.L.A.W Log Archive, but that's fine. This is going to be the main one that I'm working with. No issues there. All right. We are not done yet because we need to lock this account back down. So I'm going to close this window. I'm going to close this window. And for this one, let's sign out. The next is I need to re-sign in through my SSO portal. I'm going to pause the screen while I go to mine. I'm logged back in with the SSO portal, and we're going to reapply our security. So I'm going to go use my administrator access. Go back into organizations. And go back. This time I'm going to just go to exceptions and click log archive. All the new settings, you'll notice now it actually has the name that we want it to have. And I'm going to move it back into my security organization. Move AWS account. Then let's make sure exceptions is empty. Great. Security has log archive, security operations, and IAM in there. And that is it for this particular lab. Actually, I lied. Let's go ahead and create that security audit account really quick. Go up to the top, add an AWS account. AWS account name is going to be security audit again. This time we're going to use, I'm adding a number to the end. So I'm going to call it rmogul plus S.L.A.W security audit 1 at securosis.com, because we can't reuse the email address that we used before. Everything else is going to be the same. Create that AWS account. Now here's an important issue. You don't see the account here. Let's go ahead and hit up. It's creating the one account. So pause for a second. I hit refresh, and now the security audit is there. But you'll notice it's not in it's in root. It's not in any of our other areas, which means this is actually unprotected right now. We want to lock it down. Let's click that checkbox, action, move. And this is going to go into security, move AWS account. And there we go. Okay. We covered a few different skills today. We learned about moving accounts, first we learned about how to move service control policies, and we set our system up so that we have a service control policy on exceptions, which is going to allow us to use that root account, as well as do anything we need to. So that's that exceptions. That's that little area. That's a very dangerous place to have any accounts in there. But again, if somebody gets in and can move accounts around your organization, you've got some pretty big issues. The second is then we learned how to move the service control policies. Then we moved the account into that exceptions OU. We did our root account recovery. These are all techniques you are going to need to use in real life and possibly also in future labs. We're always moving accounts around. And in some cases, we do need to access that root account. And we learned how to do a name change, and we learned how to do an email change. And again, those are both skills that you may also need to use down the road. That's it. So it's not very advanced, but we did throw a lot of different pieces at you to tie all of this together. Hit me up with any emails if you have any questions, and have a great week.